What is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be going over the results of the final week of the second split of Division B play for the Call of Duty Pro League. Of course, we kicked the week off with Hot Mic. The coaches gave their thoughts on their team's performances up to this point and what they needed to work on, as well as just answering some general questions. Of course, we kicked the week off with Heretics taking on Elevate. Heretics had a surprisingly good showing in this match. Of course, they took the opening hardpoint, and it showed that they really made some very needed improvements to their teamwork and just their overall playstyle over that weekend. Of course, Elevate evened it up, taking the S&D and the control, so they went up 2-1 in the series. But Heretics won the next hardpoint, which forced the Game 5. Heretics, of course, won this Game 5, and they really got their season back on track with this victory. This really helped them to secure their spot in the top 4. Looking at our next match, of course, we had EUnited taking on 100 Thieves to close out the day. This is a very important matchup because this match would decide the #1 seed in Division B, which would give one team better seeding going into CWL Anaheim. This matchup was nowhere near as close as I was expecting it to be, as EUnited looked dominant in all the game modes, and they were clearly the better team throughout this entire series. The difference maker to me in this series was really Pristini and his performance. He really stepped things up, and when Pristini steps things up for EUnited, that's when they tend to really win series and have great placings. One of the things that harmed them at CWL London in the grand finals was that Pristini didn't perform well, because if he performed well, it was arguable that they could have really at least gotten to a second best of 5 and possibly beaten 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves will fix their mistakes before Anaheim, though. I wouldn't expect this to happen again, definitely not in this fashion. I don't think that EUnited will 3-0 them. But if Pristini can keep things up, EUnited may make their way to another grand final, of course going through 100 Thieves or possibly Optic Gaming, and they could win. They could honestly win an event with the form that they've been in. Simp, Abizi, Pristini, Arcides, and Clayster are looking to be in championship form finally, and I think this roster really has a great chance to win at CWL Anaheim. Of course, looking at Tuesday's action, we kicked things off with Denial versus Heretics. Heretics dominated the hardpoint, and Denial responded in turn by dominating Heretics in the search and destroy and the control. Heretics, of course, responded by winning the second hardpoint and forced a Game 5 in which they won. They were able to keep up their momentum from Monday, which showed that they made massive improvements over the weekend and that they really fixed their chemistry issues. This bodes well for them going into CWL Anaheim. Looking at our next matchup, we of course had EUnited taking on Team Elevate. Elevate took the first hardpoint, which was very shocking considering that EUnited is a really strong hardpoint team, and this is what you'd expect them to take against a lesser team like Elevate, no disrespect. Of course, EUnited evened things up, winning the search and destroy in round 11, and then they swept Elevate in the control to go up 2-1 in the series. Elevate evened things out again, taking the next hardpoint, and then EUnited beat them in the Game 5 search and destroy. This was a great showing for Team Elevate as they beat a top 3 team in one of their strongest game modes, so I think that this gives them some momentum going into CWL Anaheim, regardless of how the rest of the week went for them. This was also a great showing for EUnited as they got a 3-0 the day before, but this showed that they could stay composed and really close out series even against lesser teams. When you're getting into championship form, it's very important that you defeat the teams that you should, as these teams often play spoiler and prevent the best teams from becoming championship caliber teams in crucial moments. Looking at our next matchup, we had E6 taking on 100 Thieves. Of course, 100 Thieves won the hardpoint as one would expect, and E6 won the search and destroy as we would expect them to. 100 Thieves responded by dominating their best game mode, which is control, and E6 of course dominated the second hardpoint, which was really shocking to me. E6 has been a great hardpoint team, don't get me wrong, but 100 Thieves has shown time and time again that they are, if not the best hardpoint team in this game, definitely one of the top 3 hardpoint teams in this game. So I wasn't expecting them to get beat by a team that's at the bottom of the division. Of course, they won the series by taking the Game 5 search and destroy, but this series was very significant because both of the top teams in the division got pushed to the limit by middle of the pack teams, and this showed us really how much the skill gap has shrunk in this game at this point. In our last match of the day, we saw Team Envious taking on Splice. Of course, Envy took the opening hardpoint, and Splice evened things up by taking the S&D and the control, sweeping Envy 3-0. Of course, they took a 2-1 lead in the series at this point, and then they put the icing on the cake by 100-point clubbing Envy in the final hardpoint. Of course, like I said before, Splice was really trying to improve since they had so many chemistry issues the week before, and they of course benched accuracy in place of Nolson, so this really helped them to improve their chemistry and just get things back on track, which allowed them to get back into the top 4. Moving on to Wednesday's action, we started the day off with Elevate taking on 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves got the 3-0 sweep, and they dominated Elevate in all 3 of the maps. It was interesting to see that they beat a team that took 2 maps off the team that had beaten them on Monday, and in such dominant fashion no less. Of course, in our next match, we had Denial taking on EUnited. EUnited started off hot, dominating Denial in the hardpoint, as we would expect, and Denial evened things up by stealing the Search and Destroy, as I predicted in my preview video last week. EUnited, of course, won the Control 3-1, and we witnessed the first perfect round of Control within the CWL in this matchup. So if you haven't seen that, please go back and watch the clip. It was absolutely incredible. Of course, EUnited was able to dominate the hardpoint, and they closed things out 3-1, fixing the mistakes that they had against Elevate the day prior. In our next matchup, we had Heretics taking on Splice, and this was a great showing for Splice as they dominated the opening hardpoint and Search and Destroy. However, Heretics responded by winning the Control in a dominant 3-1 fashion, but Splice was able to close things out by winning the hardpoint. Of course, we closed the day out with Team Envious taking on Enigma 6. This might be E6's best performance within the Pro League thus far. They won the hardpoint by 5 points, which was incredible. They mounted an insane comeback. I believe they were down maybe 30 points, and they brought it all the way back to win 250 to 245. If you didn't see that hardpoint, please do yourself a favor and go check it out. They also won the Search and Destroy 6-1, and they won the Control to get the 3-0 sweep. Of course, moving on to Thursday's matches, we kicked things off with Enigma 6 taking on Denial. Denial won the opening hardpoint and dominated E6 in the S&D, winning it 6-2. E6 then responded with a 3-0 Control victory, and they took the second hardpoint after heating up a bit in this Control match. The Game 5 was crazy. It went down to the wire, and it came down to Bance getting a Kobe nade to take down 2 people to get them the round 11 victory. This was one of the best series of the week in my opinion, as it was very, very back and forth, and you never really knew who was going to win when you were watching it live, apart from obviously the first 2 maps as I mentioned. Of course, looking at our next matchup, we had Team Elevate taking on Team Envious. Envy won the first hardpoint, and Elevate responded by winning the next Search and Destroy 6-2, which gave Envy an 0-8 S&D record during this split of Division B. Elevate then swept the Control, and Envy won the second hardpoint to force a Game 5. Of course, Envy's struggles continued, and they lost their 9th Search and Destroy game in a row going into Anaheim. This is really bad for them, and somewhat ironic considering the fact that they picked up 2 S&D stars in Decimate and Pharaoh, and you would have expected their S&D to have improved by picking those 2 players up, but it actually statistically got worse. So we'll see what Anaheim has in store for them. Hopefully they can turn things around. Looking at our next match, we had EUnited taking on Heretics. EUnited won a very closely contested hardpoint, and Heretics evened things up by winning a round 11 S&D. EUnited responded by winning the Control, and Heretics answered back by winning the hardpoint and pushing it to a Game 5. EUnited of course took the Game 5 S&D, which gave them a 7-0 record throughout the second split, and for a seed in the division going into CWL Anaheim. So they closed things out in the same fashion that Optic Gaming did a few weeks prior. Looking at our last match of the day, we had 100 Thieves taking on Splice to close things out. Of course, as we would all expect, 100 Thieves dominated and they swept Splice. They dominated the hardpoint, they dominated the Search, and they dominated the Control. So there's not really much to take away from this matchup. Obviously, Splice was playing with a sub that they hadn't really gotten much practice with over the weekend, so it wasn't really expected that they would give 100 Thieves a run for their money. Of course, if they kept accuracy on the roster, then I thought that they had a good chance to push things to the limit, but since they're really still developing their teamwork and chemistry with Nolson, it was kind of chalked. Looking at the standings, of course, Splice was a team I said would sneak into the top 4, along with Team Envious, who didn't make it, but I did say that Heretics would be able to regain if they got good practice over the weekend, which it looks like they did, and they remained within the top 4. EUnited, of course, upset 100 Thieves to take the top spot, and they look to be in great form going into Anaheim as a result, which brings me to the pools for CWL Anaheim, which I'll be covering in the next part of this video. Looking at the pools for CWL Anaheim, of course we're going to start things off with Pool A, which is comprised of Optic, Evil Geniuses, Heretics, and Denial. I think the Optic will obviously top the pool, but I think the EG will honestly take second place. They perform very well at Pro League, and they look to be the most consistent team apart from Optic Gaming within this group. It may surprise some of you that I took EG as the second best team within this group, but if you look at their Pro League performances, they really prove that they can hang with some of the top teams in all of the game modes. Some of you may be surprised that I took EG over Heretics, but it's just a consistency thing. I think that with all the role switching that Heretics has done this year and the inconsistent placings that they've had, it's just hard to put your faith in that team to perform consistently at a high level. With that being said, I do think that they have a great chance to take second in this pool, but Denial is also a very strong team, and if Brack can go off, I think that Denial could honestly take second or third within this pool, even though I project them to go fourth, just because of the competition that they'll be facing. Looking at Pool B, I mean, come on, we all know, EUnited, everyone's going to expect EUnited to top this pool. I don't really see them being dethroned in any way, shape, or form, even with things going crazy. Simp, Abizi, Arcides, Clay, and Persini are just firing on all cylinders at this point, and I don't think that these guys will be stopped anytime soon. I expect Team Reciprocity to take second place at this event, as they've had more time to play with their sub, Dens, and that makes them a really scary team. Dens was a really highly regarded player during the Pro League qualifiers, and he didn't get on the top team until Reciprocity picked him up as a sub. So I think that they could really make a deep run with Dens being added to their roster recently, since he's going to be playing out of his mind most likely, since he has a chip on his shoulder and he wants to prove that he's a top player in this game. Of course, in third place from this pool, I see Team Elevate. Brezzy and Skies are really nasty, but Elevate lacks consistency. If they play well, they could definitely get a top 2 spot, but I don't think that's really likely, just considering how many teamwork issues they've had. Of course, in fourth place, I have UIU. I feel bad for UIU. They've never really had a good showing throughout the Black Ops 4 season, and all the players on the team are very good. I just think that they have chemistry issues that cause them to not place well. Of course, looking at Pool C, we have FaZe, Splice, Midnight, and E6. I think that this is the second most competitive pool at CWL Anaheim. Of course, the most competitive being Pool D, which I'll get into next. In first place, I see FaZe coming out with a 3-0. Of course, they're in fantastic form, and they look to be a top 4 team within this game at this point, so I expect them to go very far in this tournament. In second, I have Splice. They're finally getting back to their Vegas form, so that was when they were a top 3 team in this game, and I see them possibly making a very deep run at this tournament. Of course, in third place, I have Midnight. This team is capable of performing very well, but they consistently have had trouble closing series out against good teams. And in fourth place, of course, I have E6. They're a great team, but they're not really hitting their stride just yet. They've had really great showings against some of the top teams within Division B lately, but I expect them to really do well at the next event once they've had more time to gel as a team. Of course, looking at our last pool, we have 100 Thieves, LG, Gen.G, and Envy. That kind of rhymed. I have 100 Thieves coming out in first place. Obviously, they're not my favorite to win, if I'm being honest with you. I favor EUnited at this point. But I expect them to get a top 3 placing, and of course they have a fantastic chance of winning along with Optic Gaming and EUnited. It's really just dependent on who performs the best on Saturday and Championship Sunday. Of course, in second place, this is a very hot take, and I know everyone in the comments is getting their pitchforks out and ready to stab me. But I have LG taking second place. I think LG will get it together at CWL Anaheim, and they'll shock a lot of the good teams, similar to how they did at Fort Worth. Of course, that was with the Rampart meta, so it's a little bit questionable as to LG's dominance at that event, since no one was really practiced with the Rampart, and they were obviously superior. Classic was a Don with the Rampart. So I think the LG can really pull it out, though. I think that they have the potential to really shock a lot of the teams, since they're expecting them to come out very flat, and I think teams might underestimate them. Of course, this is a major, so that might not be the case, and LG might get completely destroyed, but I think that they'll work things out, and I think that they will really shock a lot of us by having a great performance. Of course, in third place, I have Gen.G. I see them coming out kind of flat given their inconsistent performances during the Pro League, but all things considered, they could definitely get second place if they play to their potential. In last place, I have Team Envious. They could do better, but based on their Pro League performances as of late, their Search and Destroy has looked really, really, really bad, and they're having a lot of chemistry issues. So I don't think that they'll have much success at Anaheim because of this. Obviously, it's a major, and teams that don't have great chemistry get, exposed at this point. So we'll see how things go. I'll be bringing you guys an update video on Saturday, going over the results of Friday, and then obviously on Sunday going over the results of Saturday, and obviously a summary of the event on Monday. So be on the lookout for those videos. Lots of content coming this weekend. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. And I will catch you on the next video. Peace.